Okay, welcome back to our next class. We were studying about the schools of thoughts, how psychology emerged in its real form right now in modern era. We had talked about something about structuralism, where we were focusing on the structure of our mind. Uh, Structure, it's a very important to understand what structuralism is. Actually, Wundt believed that consciousness, which means the state of being aware of external things or external events, could be broken down into thoughts, experiences, emotions, and other basic elements. But the problem was how to measure these things, these emotions, these consciousness. And he had given that in order to inspect these non physical elements, students had to learn to think objectively about their own thoughts. Now, here the objectiveness comes. There are two kinds of study. One is subjective study of anything, and second one is objective study of anything. Subjective means you are not going to measure anything, and there is no statistical evidence when we are studying something subjectively. But during objective study, we have some statics on the basis of which we can conclude our results. But the question is how Wundt was able to study the consciousness, means a state of being aware of external stimuli objectively. He used the method of introspection, means like I am a student of Wundt, he will give me a stone on my hand and he will ask me what I am feeling, what is its weight, how my emotions are, how my hormones are working, and on the basis of whatever I have said, he will note down the results. A very important thing to note here that the researcher, who is the researcher here? William Wundt. Obviously, researcher has to be unbiased because there's a problem in psychological study which is known as researcher's biasness. We will study more about it, in which researcher listens only those things which he wants to listen. So in this object introspective study, researcher has to focus on this thing, that he is not biased to listen something. So this was all about structuralism. I think I have explained well enough, not well but enough, about structuralism. Now again, the second person or teacher, who was also the form supporter of Wundt. Actually, Titchener was the student of Wilhelm Wundt, and after studying from Wilhelm Wundt, he went to USA, and there he started several classes for psychology. So he was also the supporter of structuralism. And next important aspect which started was functionalism. During 1900, after 1900, the inclination of the researchers toward structuralism was started reducing, started getting declined, and that was because of the difficult complexity of structuralism, because there was only one method, which was introspection, and based on introspection we cannot say that any result is fully true. So there were some questions about the legacy of the methods applied by Wilhelm Wundt. That's why a new school of thought was developed. Founder of this school of thought was William James, and this school of thought was known as functionalism. Basically, the matter is William James tried to concentrate more on functions of mind rather than focusing on the structure of mind. Now, what are the functions of mind? How can we know about it? Here it's written. You may have, if the video quality is better, I think video quality might be better from our previous class. So here it's written. Instead, James focused on how the mind allows people to function in the real world, how people work, play, and adapt to their surroundings. These are the physical tasks. If we say that someone is working, playing, or adapting to their surroundings, these are externally related to some physical functions. But how this is related to mind? Of course, mind is doing, that's the mind, because of which we are able to do these things. That's why William James said, asserted more focus on functionalism. This was what functionalism, and the problem with the functionalism was same. How you are going to measure the functions of our mind? And yes, of course, this school of thought was highly influential, and about 1930s and 1940s, a new school of thought came. But let's go to other school of thoughts which were developing at the same time. I am saying they were developing at the same time with structuralism and functionalism. Functionalism and structuralism both used to fight with each other, not physically but verbally. They were trying to assert that they are correct. Means if we talk about structuralist, then they were saying that structuralism is good, and when we are talking about functionalist, then they were saying that functionalism is good, better, and functionalism should be the subject matter of psychology. Actually, what this what was going on? This was all about the subject matter of psychology. What should be the subject matter of psychology? That was being decided by these school of thoughts. One of an important thing which I missed here is that during the starting era of psychology, there were a problem of gender. There was a huge gender gap, and women were even not allowed to enter in the field of psychology. One of the student of Tichenor was not awarded with the degree of PhD even after fulfilling all the major criteria, but she was denied the degree of PhD because she was a woman. So with this incident, if we can say that during the starting phase of psychology, participation of women was far less than the present day. Presently, we can boast of having more women than men in the field of psychology. Of course, we can see it. Now, three influential approaches of psychology. Actually, they were not the approaches of psychology, they were the school of thoughts which were being developed at the same time when these two school of thoughts were being progressed. First one was gestalt psychology. You will be taught about taught about gestalt principles in our schools and in our college. Max Valdemar was the proponent of gestalt psychology. The idea behind this is whole is greater than the sum of its parts. For example, let's say a car. If we differentiate the parts of a car, there is a tire, there are handles, there are electronic equipment, there is seat, and many more things. If we differentiate everything of a car, then it will be of no use. It will be of use only if we see uh, it as a car. It is assembled. If all the parts of a car are assembled, then only can we use that car. So what is the usefulness? We cannot break things into its parts. If we are breaking things into the part, that will not be useful for us. So he has given that we should focus on the usefulness of the things in our daily life in psychology. And if we are talking about usefulness, then we have to see every aspect of human behavior as well as human surroundings as a whole, not to see it by breaking it into its parts. Let's see it. This is an example of gestalt principles which we will learn more about when we will go into the next chapter. But here, what you can see, what you are saying. Oh, there is another illusion. Sorry, this is not the topic of illusion. So you are saying that it's a circle. Many of you will see it as a circle. Of course, this is human mind, and human mind is trained to see this as a circle. But if we see it deeply, a little more with a little more attention, then we will find that this is nothing but a collection of dots. What we are seeing here, circle. No, it's not a full circle. Why we didn't saw this? That this is not a full circle, and also this circle has also not completed. So how our mind is thinking? Because our mind has been already trained to see the things on the basis of its usefulness, that is as a whole. That's what gestalt psychologists say. And the next school of thought which we will further study about this school of thought in the perspectives of psychology also. But here comes the greatest of all psychologists, that is Sigmund Freud. Many of you may have answered when I had asked you in my previous class that who is the father of psychology. Many of you may have written Sigmund Freud also. But here comes Sigmund Freud and the psychoanalysis. What is psychoanalysis? It's basically Sigmund Freud was a neurologist, and he was studying about his patients, and there were some diseases or some problems, some disorders which were not explained by general theories of neurology. That's why he tended towards psychology and psychoanalysis. What psychoanalysis says? He says, psychoanalysis says that this is a line, and there is a greater part of our mind which we can call as unconscious. The spelling may be not good. I know the spelling, but screen is short, so I cannot write fully. And this is your conscious part. What conscious contains everything about which we are aware of, and what unconscious contains, it contains everything which we want to forget. Our hatred, our sadness, our desires, and everything which are unfulfilled, and we want to fulfill it, but we know that they cannot be fulfilled. They all come under this unconscious field, unconscious mind. And from this unconscious mind, he has explained about dreams. That's one of the biggest contribution of Sigmund Freud, and many more contributions also. Later on, this is his theory. Sigmund Freud's theories are called as psychoanalysis or psychoanalytics, and his followers are Carl Jung, and her and his daughter also. So later they added something new to it, and there was another mind they added in this, named as subconscious mind. This is your conscious mind, this is your unconscious mind, and in between them there is your subconscious mind, which was later added in psychoanalysis. We will not go deep into the psychoanalysis here. We will just trying to study about the schools of thought and the development process of the psychology and the definition of psychology, which now right now we are studying in modern era. Can you guess what was the biggest problem in this field? I mean, in this school of thought, psychoanalysis, in this perspective of psychology. I'm saying here perspective, but here at this point you will say it school of thought. Later on, when we will be studying about the perspectives of psychology, then we will be seeing that there is a perspective of psychology named as psychoanalysis with the same thing, right? So here we are understanding the development process. That's why we are saying that it is a school of thought. Don't be confused in it. The biggest problem with the psychoanalysis was not based on the scientific principles. How can you say that unconscious mind is there, and how will you measure later? If possible, if possible, I will take the classes of your statistics also, and there we will show that how we measure everything. How, but yet we have not developed any instrument, any technique by which we can measure the unconscious mind and its contents, and hence still being the part of psychology. Psychoanalysis couldn't become so much famous. Of course, the theories behind it are there, and due to these theories, these concepts, we are studying psychoanalysis in psychology. Otherwise, we will have been studying this in what it is said, telepathy. Next school of thought comes with the name of Pavlov and Watson. Actually, Pavlov had performed an experiment on dogs, that when a bell is ringed, dogs start salivating. You may have heard about this experiment in your early life or early schooling age. I'm not going deep into that, but here what we are saying, this is a bell, and by ringing this bell, can you make your dog to salivate? The answer is no, you cannot, because this is a neutral stimulus, which is no how related to food. Bell is not related to food at any aspect, but still you can do that. You can make your dog salivate by ringing this bell with a process known as conditioning, and this is what Pavlov had done. Pavlov, what he had done, first he started ringing bell before feeding his dog. 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, 4 day, and things were going on, and one day every dog used to salivate only by ringing this bell. This was the power of conditioning. And later on, B.F. Skinner also came here, and he also performed the same experiment with some improvements, and he also proved that conditioning is there. And now At this stage of psychology, we study about two types of conditioning. One is classical conditioning and second is operant conditioning. Why we are talking about conditioning here? Okay, so we were studying about another school of thought named as behaviorism, which was developed by, especially developed by Watson, Pavlov, B.F. Skinner, and many more. What behaviorism say? Behaviorism disregarded all the above theories, that we should focus on mind, we should focus on consciousness, subconsciousness, unconsciousness, we should focus on gestalt principle and many more. They disregarded everything and they told that psychology should restrict itself to observable actions and reactions. What is behavior? We had studied in our previous class what is psychology. Psychology is the scientific study of behavior and cognitive processes. What was behavior there? That behavior comes from here with these experiments, with these psychologists. And behavior is simply any externally observable actions and reactions, because if the actions and reactions are externally observable, then we can measure them, otherwise we cannot. That's where, from where this behaviorism came, this word in the definition of psychology came. Okay, so how behaviorism came in the definition of psychology, we know that. How cognitive processes was added in it. Let's get to next school of thought. So this is one of the most important school of thought developed later in about 1860s. This is not a long time. Okay, so from the behaviorism we will end our class. From here basically we have understood all the school of thoughts, and now we will be studying about the perspectives of psychology. Whatever we had studied in school of thought, we will study in some of the school of thoughts will be studied in perspective of psychology also, like psychodynamic perspective, also known as psychoanalysis, also known as analytical psychology, Sigmund Freud's theory. Behavioral perspective, behaviorism was also a school of thought. Humanistic perspective is new. Cognitive perspective, which is the current perspective we are following along with the behaviorism. So we right now in general psychology we study, our focus is majorly on behavioral perspective and cognitive perspective. A school of thoughts have been cleared in my terms, but if you have any doubt you can write down in comments. I will answer it. Your concepts will be clear, that's my guarantee, because I have read both the books line by line, and in Baron also both the books have written the same. I have not referred Baron in the school of thoughts because Baron had given less when we talking about school of thoughts, and also he had given less content in the psychological perspectives also. That's why we are studying right now Cicerelli. What if there is any difference in both books, I will tell the differences from the both the book, what is different and what is new added in Bannon or Cicerelli. So that's all for today.